Sophie Cunningham said something about Marina Mabrey after this game that Indiana Fever fans are going to be quoting for the rest of the season. She didn't hold back. Cunningham went 3 for 3 from three-point range. Kelsey Mitchell tied a league record nobody's touched in WNBA history, and Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever broke 10 WNBA records in one night. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Mabrey tried to bully her way into the highlight reel and got the opposite. Wait until you hear what Sophie actually said about it and how Mabrey got a dose of instant karma. Does Marina deserve the instant karma? Show your love for Sophie and Caitlyn in the comments below. Why does Marina Mabrey get under the skin of every single Fever fan on the planet? It's not just that she talks trash. Plenty of players do that. It's what she did to Caitlyn Clark back in 2025 that nobody in Indiana has forgotten. And it's exactly why this Toronto trip felt like it had a chip attached to it before the ball was even tipped. Here's what happened. Clark got poked in the eye by Josie Sheldon, and for a second she's blinking, trying to find her footing, basically defenseless. And that's the exact moment Mabrey picked to come flying in from the side and level her with a body check that had nothing to do with the ball. No whistle, no flagrant, no ejection, nothing. The play just got waved off like it never happened, and that's the part that stuck with people. Fans slowed that clip down frame by frame, trying to figure out how 3 officials standing right there missed it. The replays got passed around for weeks, then months, and every time Mabrey's name came up in any context, that hit came up right behind it. No fine ever came down from the league office either, and that silence told fans everything they needed to know about how seriously anyone was taking it. It wasn't just one dirty play that got glossed over. It became the symbol for a whole season where Clark kept getting hit and the whistle kept staying in the pocket. Because that wasn't isolated. Clark spent that entire 2025 season dealing with hard fouls, extra contact on screens, hands that lingered a little too long, and defenders who seemed to know they could get away with it. Mabrey built her reputation on exactly that kind of grabby, physical defense whenever she matched up with Clark, and fans watched it happen enough times that it stopped looking accidental. So when the schedule came out and showed Indiana heading to Toronto, where Mabrey now plays after the expansion draft, this wasn't just another road game. This was the first time the two of them would share a floor since that hit. And everybody in Fever Nation knew exactly what that meant. Stephanie White didn't tiptoe around any of it before tip-off either. She talked about her team defending better and taking care of the ball, and she made a point of saying her team's poise in big moments had gotten better too, which is coach language for we're not losing our composure no matter what Toronto throws at us. White also had nothing but respect for the challenge Mitchell would be facing, calling her a baller and saying there's not a tougher cover one-on-one in the league, which tells you Indiana walked in expecting a fight and planning to win it anyway. Clark herself sounded locked in rather than rattled when reporters asked her about the physicality. She talked about taking pride in meeting defenders at the point of contact and paying more attention to detail on the scouting report, which is exactly what a point guard says when she's preparing, not panicking. She even gave Mabrey some credit, saying Marina's having the best year of her career and that it's been fun watching her unleash that talent from a distance. That's not fear-talking. That's a player who respects the threat and has already figured out how to answer it. Toronto sold the building out for this one, and every person walking into Scotiabank Arena that night expected Mabrey to bring the same aggression she'd shown all year. Indiana walked in knowing exactly what was coming, because they'd seen this movie before. What nobody in that building expected was how fast that plan would turn the whole arena against the home team by the final buzzer. 19,300 people bought tickets to watch the Toronto Tempo play basketball in their own building, and by tip-off, that building didn't belong to them at all. It belonged to Caitlyn Clark. Fans started lining up outside Scotiabank Arena hours before the doors even opened, and the buzz out there had nothing to do with Toronto's record or their playoff hopes. People showed up in Fever jerseys, Clark jerseys, signs with her number on them, standing in a line that wrapped around the block for a team that isn't even from their country. That's the part that had to sting a little if you're the Tempo trying to build something. This is an expansion team trying to plant a flag in a brand new market, trying to get Toronto to fall in love with its own squad, and instead the whole night turned into a roadshow for Indiana. with the loudest cheers in the building going to the visitors every single time they touched the ball. Then there's the heat. Both Clark and Stephanie White brought it up afterward, unprompted, because it actually affected how the game played out. Scotiabank Arena got hot, really hot, the kind of hot that wears players down over 4 quarters of full-speed basketball. And it wasn't just talk. Kelsey Mitchell had to come out of the game in the 4th quarter because she overheated, which is a wild thing to read in a box score, but that's how bad conditions got in there. Clark, being Clark, turned it into a joke afterward instead of a complaint, cracking that Toronto might want to look into getting the air conditioning fixed before the next game. That line right there tells you she wasn't stressed by any of it. She's cracking jokes about the thermostat after breaking 6 records in a building that was working against her. Indiana pushed their record to 24-12 with the win, and stretched their winning streak to 5 games in a row, all while grinding through a travel schedule that would wear anybody down. Back-to-backs, cross-border flights, different time zones, different hotel beds every few nights, and they're still finding a way to walk into hostile buildings and leave with wins. That's not luck. That's a team playing its best basketball at the exact moment people expected the travel and the physicality to catch up with them. Toronto didn't just roll over either, and this is where the game actually got interesting. The tempo outworked Indiana on the offensive glass all night, grabbing 18 offensive rebounds and turning those extra chances into a 22-9 advantage in second-chance points. That's a real problem for any defense to deal with, giving up that many extra possessions to a team fighting to stay relevant in its own building. Indiana's defense had to guard the same possession 2 and 3 times over because Toronto kept crashing the boards and getting second and third looks at the rim. So the final score, 101-95, wasn't some blowout where Indiana cruised on cheers alone. This was a game Indiana had to grind out possession by possession, fighting through extra Toronto shots, fighting through the heat, fighting through a building that started the night rooting for the home team logo. And it's exactly in that kind of grind, when a game gets tight and physical and nobody's just handing anything over, that Marina Mabrey's night started falling apart in ways the box score couldn't hide. 6 different WNBA records fell to one player in a single game, and she piled them up while Toronto bumped her, hounded her, and tried every trick to slow her down. 24 points, 7 assists, and a night that turned into a record chase almost nobody saw coming when the ball first went up. Record number 1. Clark picked up her 4th Player of the Week award of the season, which puts her ahead of reigning MVP A'ja Wilson, who's sitting at 3. 4 times this season, the league looked at every guard, every scorer, every playmaker, and decided nobody did it better than Clark that week. That's not a one-off. That's a full season of dominance getting recognized over and over again while people kept waiting for her to slow down. Record number 2. Clark became the fastest point guard in WNBA history to reach 700 points in a season. Not the fastest rookie, not the fastest guard on a good team, the fastest point guard ever to put up that kind of scoring number, and she did it running an offense, setting up teammates, and still getting hit off the ball all night by Toronto's defense. Record number 3. She tied her own record for the longest 20.5 assist streak by a guard in league history. She already owned this one, so tying it just means she's chasing herself now, which is exactly where a player wants to be when nobody else is even in the conversation. Record number 4. This makes 6 straight games with 20-plus points and 5-plus assists, tying the record she set back in June of this year. So the mark she's chasing belongs to her from earlier this season, and now she's matched it again in a building that was 100 degrees and hostile from the opening tip. Record number 5. Clark became one of only 2 players in WNBA history to hit 700-plus points and 250-plus assists in a single season. The other name on that list is Caitlyn Clark, from her 2024 rookie season. Nobody else in the history of this league has ever done it. Not once. So right now, this list has exactly 1 player on it, and she's on it twice. Record number 6, and this one covers her whole career, not just this season. Through just 85 career games, Clark already has more points than A'ja Wilson and Diana Taurasi had at that same point in their careers, more assists than anybody who's ever played the game, more threes than anybody who's ever played the game, and more triple-doubles than anybody who's ever played the game. Read that again. 2 future Hall of Famers, and she's already ahead of both of them on the scoring list before you even get to the assists and threes and triple doubles, where she's not just ahead, she's the record holder outright. While every camera in the building stayed locked on Clark, Kelsey Mitchell quietly tied a record that stretches across every season the WNBA has ever played. Nobody was talking about it in real time because Clark's night was so loud, but Mitchell's line deserved its own headline. And it's the kind of record that doesn't come around twice in a career. Mitchell dropped 29 points on 11 of 16 shooting before she ever left the game, and that stat line wasn't just a hot night for a veteran scorer. That outburst was the record-breaking moment, just dressed up as a normal box score line at first glance. She got to her spots, knocked down the mid-range shot she's built her whole game around, and did it in an arena that was working against her from the jump. Record 7. Mitchell extended her streak to 20 straight games with 20 or more points, tying the longest streak in WNBA history, across any era, any decade, any team. 20 games in a row of putting up 20 or more points isn't a hot stretch. That's half a season of a player refusing to have an off night, game after game, against every kind of defense the league can throw at her. Record 8 came on the same night. Mitchell hit 2,000 career field goals made. That number puts her in a small group of players who've scored at that kind of volume over a full career, and it's not a milestone that happens by accident. It takes years of getting shots up, staying healthy, and staying good enough that a team keeps running plays for you, possession after possession. Now think about where both of these happened. Same overheated arena that forced her out of the game. Same night she got shoved into a confrontation with Marina Mabrey after Mabrey tried to get physical with her. Mitchell hit 2 career-defining marks in the middle of all that chaos, and that says plenty about how she handles pressure. She's not picking her spots against soft competition to pad a stat line. She's doing it in the middle of a fight, in the heat, against a defense trying to rattle her on purpose. Mitchell's exit in the fourth quarter forced Indiana to adjust on the fly, because losing your second leading scorer in the final stretch of a close road game changes everything about how you close it out. Stephanie White had to lean on other scorers, tighten up the rotation, and trust the lead Mitchell and Clark had already built earlier in the game. That's not a small thing to overcome late in a game. Toronto was still fighting to get back into. Record 9 belongs to both of them together. Clark and Mitchell combined for their 16th game this season, with each of them scoring 20 or more points, breaking the record set by Diana Taurasi and Cappie Pondexter back in 2008, who topped out at 15. That's 2 players on the same roster, in the same season, both hitting 20 more times than any scoring duo in league history has managed before them. Record 10 belongs to the whole team. Indiana matched their franchise record for wins in a season with 24, a number that sits right next to their playoff push and their 5-game winning streak. Toronto threw hard fouls, phantom whistles, extra rebounds, and an overheated building at this team all night, and none of it slowed the offense down. If anything, it just gave Indiana more reason to answer back with buckets. Stack it all up. Mitchell's 2 records, the 2 team records for Indiana, and Clark's 6, and you get 10 WNBA records broken in one single game against one single opponent. That's not a normal Tuesday night in Toronto. That's a historical night that happened to take place in a sold-out building that started the game rooting against the team, setting every single one of those records. And when reporters asked Sophie Cunningham about Marina Mabrey trying to get physical with Clark all night, Cunningham didn't dance around it at all. She looked at them and said, "Even her bullying tactics can't stop Caitlyn." 10 words, and Fever fans have been repeating them ever since, because that line says everything the box score already proved. There's one number in that box score that tells you everything about how Mabrey's night actually went, and it's not the 22 points next to her name. Because 22 points on 21 shots sounds like a decent night for a scorer, right up until you look at the plus-minus sitting next to it. That number is -14, the worst mark of anybody on the floor, on either team. In plain terms, every minute Mabrey played, Indiana outscored Toronto by a wide margin with her out there watching it happen. She got her points, sure, but it took 21 shots to get them, and her team lost badly every single time she was on the court to get them. Somewhere in the middle of that stat line, Kelsey Mitchell hit her limit. Mabrey kept leaning into her tactics, The grabbing, the extra contact, the stuff that's been following her around since that hit on Clark last year, and Mitchell finally shoved back. That exchange got both players a technical foul apiece, double technicals on the floor, and it wasn't Mitchell backing down from anything. It was Mitchell drawing a line and daring Mabrey to cross it again. Sophie Cunningham didn't back off either. Both her and Mitchell stood their ground all night, refusing to let Mabrey dictate how physical this game got. That's the whole story of how Indiana handled Toronto's approach. Nobody flinched, nobody backed away from contact, and nobody let Mabrey turn this into the kind of game where Indiana starts playing scared. They matched the physicality and then just kept scoring on top of it. Here's where the irony gets almost funny. The harder Mabrey pushed, the more efficient Indiana got, especially from behind the three-point line. You'd think all that grabbing and bumping would rattle a team's shooting touch, throw off their rhythm, make them settle for bad looks. Instead, Indiana just got hotter from deep as the game went on, like the physicality actually sharpened their focus instead of breaking it. Sophie Cunningham put up 13 points and went a perfect 3 for 3 from three-point range. That kind of shooting night puts her at the second most efficient three-point shooter in the entire league right now, trailing only Kelsey Mitchell. Think about that for a second. The team that was supposed to get bullied off its game ends up with two of the most accurate three-point shooters in the league on the same roster, both having big nights, both refusing to let Mabrey's physicality change anything about their shot selection or their confidence. And when reporters asked Cunningham about Mabrey afterward, she gave them a line that's already spreading everywhere online, one that gets to the point of the entire night without wasting a single word. Mabrey did put together a few threes late in the fourth quarter, cutting into Indiana's lead and making the score look closer than the game actually felt for most of the second half. But by that point, Indiana had already built the kind of cushion that a couple of late shots weren't going to touch. It's the basketball version of closing the barn door after the horse is already 3 towns over. The damage was locked in, the records were already falling, and Mabrey's fourth quarter push just added a few extra points to a losing effort. Add it all up, and the numbers say something pretty simple. Mabrey's physical approach didn't slow Indiana down at all. It fed them, possession after possession, 3 after 3, right up until the final buzzer confirmed exactly how badly the plan backfired. Picture Mabrey sitting on that bench, staring at a -14 next to her name in the building she plays her home games in. Meanwhile, Clark and Mitchell are soaking up cheers that belong to the road team all night long. That's the image that sums up August 18th, 2026. Skill beat intimidation, and the box score is the receipt, 10 records deep. Now the season keeps rolling, MVP talk keeps building around Clark, and Indiana keeps pushing for playoff position. Does Marina deserve the instant karma? Show your love for Sophie and Caitlyn in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications as we're bringing you all the action and top stories. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.